All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I know everyone is logging in right now, so very excited to have you all with us today. We'll give all of our colleagues a couple of minutes to log in here, but really excited to have you all with us at the Go Green Work Package 7 webinar. All right. While we are settling in, we would love to go ahead and get some discussions going here. So I am going to go ahead and post some poll questions, and feel free to answer these questions while we are waiting for all of our colleagues to sign in and while we go through the technical things. Just very interested to hear from all of our colleagues about their experience with conservation and education on sustainability. So please, if you have a minute, would love to get your feedback on the welcome poll. Would also be really interested to know if you have anything that you think is missing from conservation and education. And if you would like, please feel free to share your thoughts on that in the chat. So as we are doing that, as you can see today, we are in a Zoom meeting format. That does mean that we would like to ask all of our colleagues who are not presenting to please turn off your mics. Of course, you're welcome to have your video on if you'd like. It's nice to see you. But of course, we also know that from sustainability perspectives, video does have a little bit more of a carbon footprint. So if you would like to keep your video off, that is totally fine as well. We will have time for live questions and answers at the end of today's session, and we will invite everyone at that time to please feel free to turn on your video and to join us. If you are having any issues with any technical things, please do feel free to pop something in the chat and I will try to help you. But as we know by now, usually the easiest thing to do is just to log out and then log back in. And usually that will fix any sort of video or audio connections. So once again, we'll just take a couple of minutes to get settled in here before we get rolling. And if you're just joining us, we have a welcome poll that's giving us a little bit of information about our experience with sustainability and conservation education. And we would love to hear your thoughts on if you have been using sustainability in conservation education, if you've applied any practices, and also if you have any thoughts about what is missing in conservation education. So please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat as well as on the poll. And as I mentioned, we'll get started in just a moment here. Right, just making sure everyone has access. Looks like it. Brilliant. All righty. So nice to see so many colleagues from around the globe. Hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, fantastic. Oh, looks like we have a lot of very similar answers here. This is interesting in terms of if we've encountered sustainability in education conservation, it's a very even split between all three answers, yes, no, and unsure. So that's a very interesting, some interesting feedback. It seems that there's quite a mix of things here. Just to let everyone know, I am going to go ahead and turn on the captions just for accessibility purposes. The conversation today will be held in English, but of course, if you have any extra accessibility needs, please do let us know and we will accommodate to the best of our ability. All right. So I think we're getting settled in here. I think it's a good time to go ahead and get rolling. I'm going to end the poll now. Thank you so much to everyone for participating and share the results. As I mentioned, it does seem actually now we have sustainability edging forward. So with half of our participants reporting that they have had some experience in finding sustainability in conservation education, and half saying potentially or maybe not. So that's really interesting to see that there is so much engagement, and I think it's also really motivating for all of us here, and especially to our colleagues from GoGreen who are going to be talking about the importance of sustainability in conservation education. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing today. So once again, welcome everyone to the GoGreen Work Package 7 webinar. It is absolutely my pleasure to be joined by colleagues from our program as well as from around the globe. And as you may know, the GoGreen project, which is a Horizon Europe project, is taking a holistic approach to implementing sustainability within the conservation field, not only within Europe, but around the globe. GoGreen has many different assets and features that are helping to support green conservation decision-making within the conservation field, including developing tools, models for decision-making, as well as materials, technological components, a definition about what green even is in the context of conservation. And in my opinion, one of the most important things is the education aspect. Because of course, when we talk about conservation and when we talk about sustainability, we realize that what we learn is really seated in our training. And that's not just training for college students or for conservators that are first-time trainees, but that's ongoing professional training. And one of the things that we realized in developing the Go Green project is that it didn't make a lot of sense to provide all of these amazing and exciting materials and opportunities for engaging with sustainability if we didn't really know what sustainability was and if we didn't have it integrated into the training programs. So it's really exciting today to be joined by our colleagues from Work Package 7 and our guest lecturer from Work Package 5, who's joining us to talk a little bit more about his input into this program. And we're going to be exploring basically what Go Green is doing to tackle the issue of implementing sustainable education into conservation education practices. So today, we're going to be joined by our colleagues from around the globe to be examining this, and it is my great pleasure to start off by introducing Claire Richardson from the Courtauld, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what Work Package 7 is, and also what we're going to be seeing coming up from the project in the next couple of months and years. So Claire, I'd love to turn over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Caitlin. That was great. Sky, if I could just ask you to go forward to the next slide. Yes. Oh, brilliant. So we've skipped forward a little bit there so that I can introduce to you what the Go Green project is all about. It's an EU-funded project promoting green conservation and aligned with the European Green Deal. And it's got several interconnected work packages. And this is just how the kind of program of this research work has been organized. And you can see that we're investigating green preventive conservation, methods for green cleaning and consolidation, and thinking about decision making. And that decision making has fed into prototype web apps. And all of these things that we've been developing will be incorporated into green education. And Work Package 7 is really all about green education. And the Courtauld, where I'm from, is leading on the on Work Package 7's delivery. And our aim is to equip professionals with sustainability skills in conservation. And we'll have 4 different modules. And so we'll cover all of these different topics, and you can see that there's lots and lots of really interesting material to cover here. So in terms of how we're going to deliver the work package, you can see that we've got a couple of different key deliverables here. One is around developing these 4 different modules for education and the things that will be inside them. So for educators, there'll be templates in terms of describing the kind of content that we think are important for these different educational topics, some bibliographies and guides to where the research has been happening and where you can find it published, and then different kinds of learning materials, different kinds of didactic materials that you might be able to incorporate into your own use. So that's the preparation of all of our teaching materials. And then in the GoGreen Academy, which is our second deliverable, we'll be actually running some workshops, so practicing doing that teaching and also publishing all of those different materials so that anyone can use these educational materials that have been developed. And that means that whether you're part of the consortium for GoGreen or you're from any other educational institution teaching conservation, you can access this kind of material that we're developing as part of the project. If I could have the next slide, please. So as part of our work to develop this material, we had an amazing symposium in Paris, and that's been the inspiration for our webinar today, is to tell you all about that symposium. And you can see us all, it was a bit chilly in Paris in January, and you can see us all here standing outside the venue, looking very cheerful after the amazing work of that symposium. And the Paris Symposium was co-hosted by the European Commission, Paris 1, CNRS, ENS Saclay, and Pamir with the Courtauld. And the goal was to explore teaching sustainability in heritage education. And so I want to just talk through some of the highlights of that symposium, but it was a really amazing, unique event because it brought together lots of different experts in conservation, educators, people with backgrounds from science, with people from more humanities backgrounds. We had early career researchers, students, teachers, and everything in between. And the aim was to really collaborate and talk together about how we can integrate sustainability into conservation education. So the conference had sort of various different strands that were woven through it and very expertly kind of put together. And you'll be hearing more from my colleague Loic, but he was instrumental in developing the program with my other colleague Claire. And we wanted to talk about educational approaches and disseminate the latest research, but also have a chance to demonstrate some of these tools that have been developed. So some of the different speakers you can see here on the slide. We had people from all around the world. Justine and Glenn joined us online. So we thought about obviously the traveling implications, but other people joined us in person, and we had some really fantastic different talks about different educational approaches. In the next slide. This was an amazing talk, disseminating research on biofabrication, which was just incredibly inspiring, with some really amazing biofabricated fabrics that everyone got a chance to kind of feel and look at. If I could have the next slide. And then we had demonstrations, and these demonstrations were super important to us because it was a chance to demonstrate the GoGreen digital support app. So this is, again, one of those things that is going to be delivered as part of the GoGreen project, and also to look at HERI-E and the digital preventive conservation platform that's also a very important contributor to the GoGreen aims. But one aspect of the conference that was really inventive and unusual is that we took the opportunity to really workshop together the themes of the 4 different educational modules. And the aim was to get the conference participants to really come together and collaborate to talk about what material, what template we could develop for these different GoGreen module themes. And so this was a really great opportunity to test out how well collaboration could be used for this kind of module development. but we keep working on it, I should say. The goals are, the drafts are still being developed as part of Work Package 7. And this webinar is another way that we're kind of able to develop further these initial drafts.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Claire, for that very insightful introduction. As we've seen, Work Package 7 is focused on education, but from a very holistic perspective. And I think that this workshop slash webinar slash symposium that was held in Paris at the beginning of this year really highlights the collaborative approach to integration of sustainability into conservation education. And one of the things that was really exciting that came out of this, as Claire already mentioned, was the interdisciplinary and international approaches to this work. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce Loïc, who was, as mentioned, a co-host on the symposium, to tell us a little bit more about the outputs of the symposium, and then we'll hear more about how that is going to help shape the modules and continuing work at GoGreen. So Loïc, over to you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin, for the kind introduction. I'm going to, and I've been asked to say a few words about the context where we started developing this activity, and also, as you've said, a few of the objectives that we are pursuing within this very interdisciplinary work. So I'm coming from ENS Paris-Saclay, actually from the chemistry department. And as you will see, we try to join both the question of training future conservators and conservators who are currently professionals, but also linking that to the use in conservation and conservation science of towards the training of science from chemistry, from physics. So we also try to link this question of education at a broader scale, where actually conservation can be an inspiring model towards other questions of sustainability within our training activities. So, but just before going to the Paris event, I should start by the fact that we started thinking about these aspects in an event that was co-organized in particular with Catherine Kern and a number of other participants and hosted by the Lawrence Center in June 2021, unfortunately, right during the COVID pandemics. And during this first group work, which was very nice and very active, although, as I said, it was online, we listed a number of points which we thought could be very important to keep in mind and develop regarding having a green heritage community. And as you can see, and highlighted here in this slide, points 7 and 8 that we have listed deal with sharing knowledge and education. And we thought already from June 2021, when our agenda was mostly about research aspects and links between the professional community in conservation and research, that education was something extremely important to have in mind in future developments. So that was right at the time when we were actually starting to write the proposal for the GoGreen project. And we included, based on this preliminary work, an educational component, as has been shown by Claire Richardson, within the EU project. I should insist that it's not common to have an education component within a research innovation action of the European Union, because there are other frameworks where actually you can deal with education. So the idea to have such a work package within this activity was something where, at the time when we were writing the proposal, we felt it could also be a risk for the project, but we thought it was a very important component, as I've said just before. And one reason to do that was that because when we listed the members of the consortium either involved in training in conservation or training in natural sciences for conservation or using conservation aspects, we saw that there was a high number of institutions involved in the project, which were actually leaders or having a very strong involvement within education in the field. So instead of going towards organizing, as we would normally do, workshops and summer schools and small trainings, we thought it would be an interesting aspect to use this and to develop this educational component, not only as a side aspect of our project, but as a major aspect that would be used by our own institutions within their training program. So what are the major challenges? So as Claire has been mentioning, we thought that a key priority was to develop a framework for future modules in green conservation. As I said, both for training in conservation and natural sciences, particularly in chemistry. And the method would be to review existing practice, also to test the interest of digital tools for education, to start drafting the training modules during a specific meeting, and to prepare support documents and policy documents for our own institutions. We thought that it would be interesting to work not only with the research and the conservation community, but also internally with our institutions to express the importance of that field for our own training programs. So it also means that we have a kind of embedded train-the-trainer approach within this development. So as Claire said, we built this Paris meeting which took place in January 2025. And during a couple of days, we have had these activities that Claire has been mentioning. So this has been a real teamwork, and in particular, it involved Claire Betelu from University Paris 1 Panthéon-Sorbonne, Claire and Rebecca from the Courtauld, and I, but also a number of young scientists that were really extremely active during the program. So we also thought that actually the young scientists involved within the GoGreen project could have a lead role in developing some of the activities. So here you have the third digital aspects. Claire has mentioned two of them. This is the third one, which is actually being worked on in a kind of side event that was held during lunchtime during the event. So the idea was to define the modules live that Claire has mentioned, was linked with our experience from several participants of the joint writing of reports within an intergovernmental organization, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna. And during the expert meeting of the agency, which usually take place during a full week, we are requested to write a report, and this report is extremely formal, comes with recommendation. So the idea was not only to have a meeting and to share ideas, and I would say to go home and with a lot of new ideas, it was also to produce something live during the meeting. And what Claire has been mentioning about this development, we have already started testing it in front of classes. So what we actually gathered during the event in Paris was already after 2 years of development of the project. And the idea was also to already have some experience. So here you have a group of 3 colleagues working on assessment of the cleaning of paints and varnish removal on paintings. And this course that you can see here is a real course in front of real students within my institutions, and with 3 colleagues, and particularly Sylvia Prati and Laure Casals, who you are seeing here, together with Claire Betelu, who also organized a visit of our labs. And actually, we try to already work and develop these questions about how to present these sustainability questions and the associated research questions in front of classes. which means that we see a bit differently, I would say, GoGreen compared to other projects or other projects we've been involved in. It's not only that we have a communication component or a dissemination component at the end of the project, but we have this kind of reflexive approach where we are during the project developing ways to present it in front of classes and directly embedding it within real courses, and at the same time developing this longer term agenda with modules that take benefit of what has been developed during the project. What is also, we think, and Caitlin has been very instrumental in that, and she was mentioning also this, interdisciplinarity is absolutely key, which means that we are also working on these aspects specifically. Here in the course that I am currently showing, we are actually involving a student who is a student with mixed training in physics and mathematics, together with a conservator, Claire Betelu, and with a chemist developing new treatments, Sylvia Prati. So the global aim behind that is also to accelerate the transition from research to practice, because we also feel that the time is short regarding these developments. And I would like to finish that. I should have added one point which we thought was also interesting and that I did not mention. Just before the Paris meeting, maybe 3 weeks before, we organized a national meeting exactly on the same topic. And the idea was there was a summary of what was discussed at the beginning of the GoGreen Paris meeting. So we think it's also very important that within our national and regional framework, we start developing these aspects, and the European projects can act as an umbrella project where actually we share ideas with a very active context. So this is what I wanted to point out during this presentation, and thank you again to Sky, Lynn, and Claire Richardson for this beautiful invitation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Loic. It's really exciting to see not only the incredible work that's being done on this, but also the approach. And I would love to, of course, invite anyone from the audience who has any questions to please feel free to share those in the chat. But I wanted to also ask you, Loic, you touched on this idea of train the trainer. And I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more what that means and maybe why that's important.
So what we've seen in the preparation of the Paris meeting, when we were in particular preparing the modules and starting seeing what was the most important information. Maybe I should go even one step before that. Within the GoGreen project, there has been this activity of defining green conservation and working on what is key to green conservation, a kind of far more advanced development of what we started doing in the Lawrence Center event. And what we thought was very important as a first step is to gather existing literature and knowledge from not only our research community and our application community, but also other research communities. And already this is, we learn a lot. And what is obvious in part of the interdisciplinary community is almost unknown for the rest of the community. So because we are so interdisciplinary, I think that preparing those courses, and I would even say teaching together, is a fantastic way of actually learning and coming to an agreement on what is important and what is the most important knowledge to transfer now.
Brilliant. Yeah, I have to say that in my own experience, I have spent a lot of time talking with conservation educators, and the biggest barrier that I have seen to integrating sustainability into conservation education is simply that the professors or the educators don't feel comfortable enough talking about it. So I think that it's such an important component to think not only about helping to support students and professional development and continuing professional education, but also to make sure that as the transfers of knowledge, we all feel comfortable enough to lead the way on this. So that's really exciting to hear. Thank you so much, Loic. We had another question in the chat, and I don't know, Claire, if this is something that you also might want to jump in on, but we'd love to hear a little bit more. We saw that there are modules being developed and tested. Are these going to be available? What's the next step?
Certainly, I think that the modules that we're going to develop will be, we'll absolutely be making them available. But they all take the form of templates. So they'll have to, the educators will still need to tailor them to their own situation. So that's, it's not going to be kind of straight away digestible, but there'll need to be a bit of tweaking and tailoring. But in terms of if you're an educator and you want to be able to teach a course, then absolutely, with these materials will be available to you. And I think that that will really, really help in kind of getting to being able to teach them in your own institution. But of course, everybody, you can't make one size fits all. Everyone knows their own students. They know what their students' educational background is. They know what the students' particular interest and focus is. And so it's always going to need a little bit of tailoring and tweaking, but everything will be made available at the end of the project as part of the GoGreen Academy. And so, yes, you can take these materials and use them in your own context. And that's really an important, outcome for the project.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And I think that that's one of the other reasons that it's so exciting for us to have the opportunity today to engage with all of you from around the world who hopefully will be benefiting from this. But actually, what we really want is your input, because as Claire mentioned, it's so important that we can make these outputs as usable, as user-friendly, and as effective as possible. So we'll be sharing a little bit more information now about the content of the modules, but asking for some more input from you guys about what you would like to see from this work package specifically, and then also some invitations for getting involved. So what I'd love to do now is thank Loic so much for his contribution to this and his leadership in this space, as well as Claire. And I'm now going to turn over to our colleague Sky Lynn, also from the Courtauld, who will dive a little bit deeper into the module content, as well as the methodology and the approach that we're taking for implementing such content. So Sky, over to you. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you. I'll just start sharing my slides.
Great, it looks like that's loading. And just for all of our colleagues, while we're waiting, we will have a few more opportunities for Q&A at the end of this presentation. So please keep your questions coming, and we'll make sure to get those answered. Thanks, Sky. Over to you.
Hi, thank you, Caitlin. I'm Sky, the GoGreen Research Fellow here at the Courtauld, and I'll just be diving a little bit deeper into the GoGreen modules that will be produced. So there will be 4 educational modules, and they are based on the outputs from the other 7 work packages of GoGreen. So the first module, Leadership in Green Conservation, covers work package 2 and 8. Module 2, Material Sensitivities and Green Decision Making, will cover work package 2. And then the last 2 modules, Green Treatments for Paintings and Objects in their Assessments, will cover research outputs from work packages 3 through 5, as well as work package 8. And the aim for these modules is that, as Loic, Claire, and Caitlin have pointed out, that they're adaptable and flexible to various academic and professional contents. And in this way, they'll have the most long-lasting impact. The module development has been divided into 2 phases. So with work package 7, we're aiming to utilize collaboration with interdisciplinary professionals to develop these modules. In phase 1, with the Paris module workshop, we were able to name all 4 of the modules, as well as create a module outline that included mission statements, main goals, learning outcomes, and content. And now we are currently starting phase 2 with a focus group within the GoGreen consortium, where we are refining and editing those Paris module drafts. So as mentioned, the phase 1 outcome, we had an outline structure of 4 core modules. And we also had a platform for engaging professionals in multidisciplinary knowledge exchange. And we identified key challenges and priorities for course development, which will be implemented within phase 2. So as we go through these 4 modules, just consider how you would adopt these modules within your curricula, or which module would you find most useful in your education. The first module, Leadership in Green Conservation, utilizes the green definition and parameters from Work Package 8 of GoGreen. This module highlights the need for providing individuals with the tools required to become green leaders in conservation. And the mission statement for this module, defined from the Paris workshop, is to promote green leadership by helping students and professionals become advocates for greener practices, equipped with knowledge, tools, and skills needed to inspire adaptable, community-driven strategies for the long-term stewardship of cultural heritage. The module content will cover 5 main topics. Green thinking, which is an introduction to GoGreen's definition of green conservation. Climate responsibility, which will examine policies, legislation, and methodologies that address the climate crisis. Climate action, which looks into current strategies and practices that promote sustainability within cultural heritage. Green tools, which will look into utilizing tools such as the GoGreen DSA app and the GoGreen decision-making framework. And then the last module topic, green advocacy, is really focusing on those soft skills of advocacy and building leadership. So oral speaking, written assessment. The second module, material sensitivity and green decision-making. This module explores greener approaches to preventive conservation, grounded in findings from Work Package 2. In this module, we aim to inform the decision-making process to enhance our cultural heritage through knowledge of green conservation and material sensitivities. The module content includes identifying sensitive materials, green decision-making, assessment tools for degradation risk, and greener solutions for preventive conservation. At the Paris Symposium, I was working on this within the workshop, and I noticed that one of the challenges we ran into while developing this module was balancing the starting point for students from different disciplines. So heritage science students often come with more technical or environmental science knowledge, while conservation students may have a stronger foundation in materials and hands-on practice. So we had to think carefully about how we were bridging those gaps without overwhelming one group or oversimplifying for the other. And if you've encountered this type of mixed discipline and group work or challenge, please let me know in the comments. Then our next module, grade treatments for paintings and their assessment. We've chosen to develop this module outline for green treatments and paintings and objects in parallel. So each module reflects a shared mission statement and content framework, but we'd also love your input if you have any alternative key terms or mission statements that you feel better capture the goals for this module. If you'd like to share them in the chat. Additionally, I'll have my email at the end of the webinar, and you can email me any suggestions as well. So for green treatments for paintings and their assessment, we aim to inform the conservation practice for paintings through the introduction of greener tools and methods to promote sustainable development. The module content includes historical approaches to the conservation of paintings and painted artifacts, eco-conscious strategies for conservation project management, greener methods in conservation practice, and green applications for remedial conservation. And lastly, our last module is green treatments for objects in their assessment. So the mission statement, as mentioned before, is mirrors painting. So it informs the conservation practice for objects through the introduction of greener tools and methods to promote sustainable development. And students will learn the same type of content, so historical approaches to the conservation of objects, eco-conscious strategies for conservation project management. So this is from the documentation phase. So how are we storing that condition report? And then down to the waste management. How are we disposing of solvents safely? And then looking into greener methods in conservation practice. And then the last module topic is a practical application for the remedial conservation of objects. So we aim to utilize these different types of teaching delivery methods, such as case studies, practical workshops, role plays, multimedia projects, and collaborative group work within the modules. We will also be constructing didactic learning material to support the learning of module content. And this material will be in the form of worksheets and infographics. You can see on the screen a sample worksheet, which encourages students to make the link between the UN Sustainable Development Goals and conservation cultural heritage. Our ongoing actions within phase 2 of the development, we have a course development focus group where we're holding monthly collaborative meetings for the development of course modules. We're also collecting key publications and case studies for the modules to create module bibliographies. And we are creating didactic materials, as you saw on the previous slide, to support the learning of the modules. And our future plans for deliverable 7.1 is continuing to collaboratively work at these group meetings, generating the module description, which is the mission statement, learning outcomes, any prerequisite knowledge students should have. And lastly, the creation of didactic materials and bibliographies. Our future plans in deliverable 7.2, they plan to host workshops focusing on the application of cleaning and consolidation methods using material from GoGreen, as well as a workshop disseminating the modules aimed at conservation educators. As Louis pointed out, it's important to train the trainers. And lastly, publication of these module templates for use and integration, and they will be uploaded on an open access platform for use, along with the module bibliographies and the didactic learning material. And if you have any questions, there are also poll questions that will be coming up soon. So you can help with the module development by answering the poll questions or by subscribing to the GoGreen newsletter, as we are putting out a survey within the next week.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sky. That's so exciting to see, once again, all of the thought that's been going into this. And I'm really excited to see what's going to be coming out of this. So we did have a couple of questions in the chat. And of course, I would love to encourage everyone. We've got about 15 minutes here for some Q&A and discussion. So if anyone else has any questions, this is a great moment to pop that in the chat for us. But we are talking a little bit about the audience for these modules that are being developed. I shouldn't say our, because really they're for everybody. And Claire, you alluded to this in the chat, but maybe we can expand a little bit. Who are these modules for? How do we be as inclusive as possible?
Sorry, it took me a moment to unmute there.
No worries.
I think that the aim is not to assume too much knowledge. So to think about what's really introductory knowledge that we can convey, and not to assume that people come with lots of knowledge. So that's one way that we can make it as applicable to as wide as audience as possible, by kind of not assuming. But in certain cases, obviously there are some of these tools which are much more suited to people already working or being trained in particular conservation disciplines. But I do think that areas of education like green leadership are applicable to absolutely everybody, and we don't need to assume knowledge. I think if you're talking about green treatments for paintings, we want to be aiming at people who have a background in paintings conservation, so that they can, we don't want to be putting out methods for everyone to try on their own paintings. Would prefer you engage a professional conservator there. So it's about striking the right balance between assuming knowledge and not but having things that are accessible to everyone. I hope that's answered that question.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is, you know, to make sure that there's flexibility. And that actually brings up another question in the chat, which is, are we going to have these materials available in multiple languages? Great question.
It is a great question. I think that at the beginning, we will be producing this material in English, but it would be wonderful if things could be translated into other languages. At the beginning, that's not where we're at.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope to see that, and maybe that's something that we can facilitate kind of after the modules are tested out. As indeed, that's one of the biggest barriers we've seen for conservation education is language, and of course, we don't want that to be a barrier. So that's very important, absolutely. So yeah, we have a little bit more. Another question about the train the trainers part of the work package. And thank you so much, Claire, for mentioning this, because this is something that I think most people feel. It's a very, it can feel overwhelming as an educator to try and integrate a topic into your curriculum that you don't feel comfortable with, that you're not trained in yourself. So maybe we can expand even a little bit more on this idea of not only how are we helping to support the students, but what are we doing to help support the teachers?
Well, I would just point straight away to that we will be hosting a workshop at the Courtauld in order to train the trainers. So if you're interested and if you want to have that, then keep an eye out for announcements about that will be happening. And yeah, we invite you to participate.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think that that's something that we've talked a lot about, is the idea of not only, you know, providing didactic materials and modules and content, but actually providing the support with real humans. What a concept these days. To be able to walk through this and talk a little bit more about it, to get comfortable talking about it. Because it's not just about reading about it. It's not just about the knowledge in here, but it's about how you can communicate. And I think, Sky, what you mentioned earlier about the idea of having role playing is really cool. And it's a great way to get people comfortable with having conversations, answering questions that they may not be familiar with, and, you know, how we can actually start getting comfortable talking about this topic. So that's really exciting to see.
Can I add something, maybe, Caitlin, to what has just been discussed? I think that GoGreen is a research project, and we have been running only for a couple of years. So the idea, we still have time, and the idea is also that I am extremely enthusiastic in reading all the comments and all the questions, because I think this is exactly what we are trying to address now. So please, as Skylin and Claire has said, please get involved, because I think we need your expertise and these questions to be discussed in the meetings that we will have until the end of GoGreen. This is really important, because at the end, we think that clearly some of these courses will be implemented in our institutions, and we want that to be as efficient and useful as possible. So I think these questions are all extremely interesting, both the question of multiple languages, training the trainers. I'm very positive, and I think there is still time, and I would say some funding within the project for us to actually structure things and prepare documents and prepare roadmaps and beta test a few ideas before the project ends.
I couldn't agree more with your enthusiastic invitation. I think it's so important that this is a community effort. And we need to hear everyone's input and everyone's ideas in order to make this as effective as possible. So as Skylin mentioned, of course, we have lots of opportunities for you guys to get in touch with us. Please feel free to contact us via the GoGreen email. I believe Sky also shared her personal email if you have specific questions there. But we will be launching, I believe next week, the first survey on the WP7 modules, and we would love to get your input and feedback. And please share that with your colleagues so we can hear from them as well. And that will be a first of many opportunities to get feedback and input. So please do keep an eye on the calls for participations in workshops, invitations for feedback, and opportunities to get involved through our social media and our news feed on our website. So thank you so much for that. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. We had a really excellent question from Sarah. She was asking about how we're going to be incorporating some of these modules into non-academic routes into conservation. Great question. Any thoughts from the team? Claire, go ahead.
Oh, maybe Sky wants to answer.
Sorry, Sky, why don't you start and then we'll have
Yeah, Sky, you go.
Well, especially because they are modular in structure, and as Claire mentioned, they're adaptable. So we aim to highlight key topics that should be covered, but if it's targeting, say, green leadership, and you want to implement it within an organization, museum organization, so getting your colleagues within collection care to learn about how to be green leaders and change that the modules are adaptable and flexible to adapt to these professional levels of education. And then we do hope that they can be used, for continued professional development, because we do want to train the next generation of conservators and heritage scientists, but we're also aiming for long-lasting impact. And that is with practicing professionals at the moment that they are interested in the course and that they implement these modules within their institution.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Claire, did you have something you wanted to add on to that? I think that was an excellent answer.
No, I think that's a great answer. But yes, I do think one of the advantages of the kind of modular nature is that you can pick and choose from it what you think is most appropriate to your organization or to your context, and hopefully still get something coherent, because they're made as building blocks that can go together.
So just to kind of
Kathleen, may I add
my
one
gosh,
sentence?
No, always interrupt me. I love it.
I love this question. I think one of we tend to forget that because it's our day-to-day life. But compared to other fields of knowledge, this question seems very natural to us, and as would be the question, are there some similar initiatives that we could do with designers, for instance? And I think this is also something that we are bringing to the environmental field as a whole, because we have really this connection. So I really agree that it would be extremely interesting to work more. And we are doing that, for instance, in our regional network. We have these programs that we are more and more developing towards arts and design together with conservation. So yes, I think it would be an interesting thing. So I would repeat myself, please attend and provide some suggestions on what we could do in this respect. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And this, of course, circles back to what you were saying earlier, Loic, about the interdisciplinary approach. And Claire, I have not done this yet, but I am going to do this, I promise, because I'm working with several colleagues in the United States who are focusing on sustainable education for artists. And I saw in the chat that there's a question about that. So I'll put everyone in touch. But I think that, we're drawing not only from our colleagues within the cultural heritage and specifically conservation field, but wider disciplines of culture and actually wider disciplines of sustainable education. And we've been drawing from the scientific approach as well as from a more humanities approach. And basically we're just gonna keep pushing for this. And I think it's really exciting to see what's going to work. It's a little bit trial and error, but I think with all of the work that's being put into this, we should have something that's really useful. So we just have a couple minutes left here, and I wanted to actually get a little bit more understanding about what you guys were talking about earlier with the Go Green Academy. Can you tell me what is the Go Green Academy, where we're going to be able to find it, who's going to be able to access it, what's going to be on it? This sounds really cool, so I want to know more.
I think that there are plenty of opportunities that for various different workshops, and through the different work packages, we've got different workshops which will take some of these new methods that are being developed and bring them to professionals and allow conservators to try them out. And so those will fall under the umbrella of the Go Green Academy. And then as well as that, there will be materials that we're going to make available in terms of all of these modules that we've developed that we're going to put online and will make available and open access. So Go Green Academy exists as a kind of real people in the real doing things with other people, but it also exists as a digital resource that means that you can carry on getting these module materials and templates.
Amazing. And that's open to everyone. So I think that that's a really exciting answer to the question of how do we make sure that this is not just for academic aspects? Because of course, if anyone has access to this, then, you know, there's also an opportunity for some self-education maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Love that. Absolutely fabulous. Sky or Loic, do you guys have anything to add about the Go Green Academy specifically? We do have a couple more questions in the chat, but I'd love to hear.
No, I don't specifically. I think that we, as a European project committed to this open science aspect, what is very important to us is to make that content available to every institution which is interested, and use, as I was showing, the group of maybe 6 or 7 institutions involved as a battlefield where actually we test these ideas internally and consolidate those documents that we will share. So yeah, I think the digital component that Claire has just mentioned is actually very important here.
Brilliant. Absolutely. I agree. And one of the other components that was mentioned, and we just received a question on, is case studies. And Loic, you had just mentioned that we're testing these modules out in certain contexts, but of course, also the content of the modules. So the greener materials, for example, or the greener approaches. Um, what does this look like in terms of the case studies that we're building, and how is this going to be implemented into the training and education components?
So I can say a few words, but then I think it will be really for Skylin and Claire. I think what we have promised, I would say, in the document is that part of the research that we are currently developing, which is the largest part of the network, is actually providing these case studies, or a list of case studies that can be directly implemented and used because they are created in the same context with the same students and the same colleagues who are actually being the core of writing the work package documents that we are discussing now. So it's still ongoing work, and I think what we have tested, for instance, on the cleaning aspects of and the varnish removal aspects still needs to be implemented in some of the module to see how it works. But what we know, I mean, from our field is that we are really a project-based type of research community. We really work by successive projects, either on objects or collections or materials. And this is very important to put these examples within the training modules, which is not completely done yet, I would say.
Hopeful. Claire, Skylin, anything to add?
Yeah, I have to just to obviously we're developing the modules to try and showcase the work of Go Green, and in Go Green, obviously the development of new methods is really a kind of, and new technologies as part of that. And we want to show these new methods, and we want to show that they've been rigorously tested. So everything that happens through Go Green effectively forms a case study for the work that we're going to present. So yes, there will be case studies where we can talk about whether we've tried these technologies out, how they've worked, whether that's been on mock-ups and samples or whether that's been on actual objects. So we really want to showcase the research. So absolutely, yes, we want to have case studies that are meaningful and helpful in that context.
Fantastic. Skylin, anything to add to that?
No, Louise and Claire covered that.
Perfect. I would like to say that perhaps this is also an opportunity to invite our colleagues to share case studies with us that they think might be relevant or useful. And once again, this is a co-creative project. This is not us deciding what needs to be in the modules, but this is an invitation to hear from you what would be useful to be in these modules. So we've been doing a lot of research and excited to open this up to a broader community for input and continued development. So unfortunately, we are out of time. I don't know how this hour has gone by so fast, but you guys have such amazing content to share. So just a huge, huge thank you for being here today and spending the time sharing it with this community. And a huge thank you to our community for being here today and sharing your ideas and questions with us. So as mentioned, the WP7 module creators are going to be sharing a survey that will be aimed at the wider conservation community. So we would love your input and feedback and participation, as well as please share that with everyone you know. The more input we get, the more information we can put into creating these modules. And please do follow us on social media and check out our website. Sign up to our newsletter for the latest information and also to be alerted for the exciting new things that are coming up, including the survey, including the workshops, and including the continued development of these modules. So a huge, huge thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's been a huge pleasure. As you know, this is webinar number 3 in our Go Green webinar series. So please stay in touch and keep an eye out for our next webinar, which will feature one of our other work packages. We'll get to dive into more information about the bio-based materials being developed, about the technological research, and of course, as you guys know, we're continuing with the advocacy and the definition of green conservation. So a huge thank you again. Stay in touch. We will have this recording posted on the YouTube channel for Go Green. Follow us there, as well as on our website later this week. So wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Thursday. And thanks again for joining us. And a huge thank you to Claire, Loic, and Skye for all of your hard work and for leading this conversation in greener education for conservation. Thank you all.
Thank you.